Is your business struggling to stand out from the crowd online? At Webamax, we specialize in turning clicks into customers. From SEO and PPC to social media management and stunning web design, we've got you covered. Boost your online presence and drive real results. Ready to take your business to the next level? Visit Webamax.com. That's WebimAX.com for a free digital analysis. Rule the web with Webamax.com.
High Five Casino.
High Five Casino is a social casino with real prizes and big Vegas hits at highfivecasino.com. The hottest games right from Vegas, and all winnings go straight to your bank account. Hundreds of exclusive games, free daily rewards, and come back to get free coins every 4 hours. Only at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details at high5casino.com.
High Five Casino. High Five Casino.
High Five Casino is a social casino with real prizes and big Vegas hits at highfivecasino.com. The hottest games right from Vegas, and all winnings go straight to your bank account. Hundreds of exclusive games, free daily rewards, and come back to get free coins every 4 hours. Only at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details at high5casino.com.
High Five Casino. High Five Casino.
High Five Casino is a social casino with real prizes and big Vegas hits at highfivecasino.com. The hottest games right from Vegas, and all winnings go straight to your bank account. Hundreds of exclusive games, free daily rewards, and come back to get free coins every 4 hours. Only at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details at high5casino.com.
High Five Casino.
Hey there, Duke fans. Episode 634 of the DBR podcast, the Duke Basketball Roundup. I'm Jason Evans. If I sound like I'm talking quickly, it is because we have a ton of stuff to cover. I'm joined by Donald Lewis. Donald White. All right.
Jason, I'm not related to him.
I'm looking
I know
at my
him,
notes.
but I'm not related to him.
I'm looking at my notes, and I'm seeing a Caden Lewis's name. A Caden Lewis is a kid who's just been offered a scholarship by the Duke Blue Devils for next season, and we're going to be talking about him a little bit later because Donald knows him quite well, and I just conflated the names. Oh my God. Donald, before we get into all this, by the way, I was going to say the reason I'm talking fast is because we have so much stuff. It's late June. This is supposed to be the dead season. Usually you and I are like, what are we going to have to talk about on our podcast? And we're sitting here with, we're going to be dropping like 4 episodes this week. It's crazy how much stuff is going on.
We had the Jay Billis interview that we split into 2 parts. We're going to have the Jared McCain one today. That's going to be pushed till tomorrow. Then those, both Jared McCain and Kyle Filipowski are likely to be drafted in the first round. Yep. We will talk about that later this week. And then probably something else will come up because it feels like, over the weekend, between Friday and Sunday, the whole world dropped of Duke basketball news, and it was a lot. So let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Exactly. So this episode 634, we're going to be talking about the Duke social media team gifting all of us with a really good first look at the 2024-2025 Blue Devils. It is worth noting it is an edited video. It's about 5.5 minutes long or so, but it is edited, so no one misses. There are only a couple shots that are missed. All the shots that are missed are either block shots or guys grab great rebounds and send it the other way. It's sequences that look good for Duke. It is worth noting that we see very little other than the block shots, very little defense being played in here. I think it is very interesting to note, Donald, that after they shot this scrimmage video, the guys walked out of the practice facility, and there was a camera sitting there with a question underneath it. There wasn't a person there. Mm-hmm. It was just like a question posted. It was, who played the best defense? We didn't see much of it on video, but like every single guy who walks out says Malik Brown was the best defender. except for Cooper Flagg, who walks out and says that he was the best defender. I love Cooper Flagg.
And Malik Brown said Kama Malawach because he couldn't pick himself. So, or at least he felt like he couldn't pick himself.
Right, he
which
felt
is
like
funny.
he could, yeah.
But Jason, I think with this scrimmage video that we have, I know back in the day we called them the raw uncut, right? Because that was what they were. Now they no longer are. They are they're edited scrimmage video. However, I still petition that we call them the raw uncut on this podcast because they are neither raw nor uncut. And I think that's the joke now.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing uncut about it. But let's talk about that video. I'm going to start with this, Donald. Our friend JJ Jackson of Locked On Blue Devils, a fabulous little podcast that JJ puts out one of these every day. Donald and I complain when we have to do 3 or 4 of them in a week. JJ does every single day of the week, 5 days a week. And JJ is a friend of the podcast, a really wonderful guy. He went ahead and watched the video and totaled up all the points. Are you ready for the box score?
We won't call it a box score because, like you said, we didn't see all of Malik Brown's defense that apparently was evident throughout that scrimmage. But like whatever we saw in the video, let's tally them up.
So here's the tallies according to JJ. Cooper Flagg leads the way with 15 points. Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor with 11 points each, returning backcourt representing. Khan Knipple with 10 points. We are going to be talking about some K2. That is for sure. Sion James with 8 points, as I posted on the DBR boards, Donald. Anyone who wants to get on the Sion James train, I am the conductor. Come pass your ticket to me. Make room because there are a lot of folks boarding the train. The seats are filling up on the Sion James train after the way he played in this video. Kaman Malawach had 6 points. Malik Brown had 4. Patrick Ngongba had 4 points. And Evans had 4 points. That's all the scoring we had. Mason Gillis does not score on this video, which is sort of an interesting kind of development. We'll talk about that as well. Donald, start wherever you want. Who was the most impressive? What was the thing you saw that was most interesting to you? Give me your thoughts on this 5.5 minutes of video that we're going to spend 30 minutes or more analyzing.
So first off, anyone who wants to join the Sion James bandwagon train, you should do that because
sorry. You're right.
We don't want to be in the wrong train. We might be in the same station, wrong train. But I think let's start there, Jason, because it's not necessarily that he was the most impressive guy in the scrimmage, at least from this video that I've seen. It's more about how he played. And again, when we talked about Sion James committing to Duke, we talked about some of the holes that he would fill. And one of the major holes that we had was going to the rim and not getting their shot blocked. And finishing through contact. And he is a guy that is doing that. Jason, we'll talk a little bit about those first look videos real quick. But that comes up quite a bit. But I think when it comes to Sion James, he's strong on the ball. He's able to, corral guys and kind of get around them. And even if there's what feels like limited space, he's able to make something happen in that limited space. And I think that's the key here is we're going to have guys who can shoot. We saw that. We're going to have guys who can rebound. We saw that. We're going to have guys who can play defense and block and make steals. We've seen all that. Sion James does not need to be the best player at any one of those things. But the fact that he's so well-rounded, but also one of the best at finishing through contact, getting to the rim when we need it. There are going to be points late in ball games, early in ball games, in the middle of ball games where we're going to need a guy who's just going to take it to the next level, go straight to the rack. If there's a guy that's in front of him that has 2 fouls, taking it to the rim so that he either has to get out of the way or get that 3rd foul and send them to the bench for the rest of the first half. Those are the things that you want to see from our team. And I noticed that there's a lot of kick out passes. We'll talk about that when we get to Khan, because I think there's a lot of guys who are able to drive the lane. And if there was no lane, kick out to somebody else who had another opportunity or maybe a better opportunity to get a good shot off. So I was really liking what I saw from Sion James. The question of whether he'll be the 5th starter, right, is still up in the air. This is, again, the first scrimmage of what will hopefully be several that we'll see over the course of the next couple of months before official practice starts. But I think what I liked from Sion James is that he was asserting himself when he got the ball. He wasn't shying away from contact. He was going right through it. And as we've talked about, he can finish.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. The fact that he finished through the chest of Malik Brown at one point, he was clearly very straight. Look, he's just cut. He's chiseled. The dude just looks every bit of like a football linebacker with the ball, taking the ball to the hole. the defense had to jump out at you. I mean, look, practically on consecutive plays, he blocks Malik Brown, Common Malwatch, and Tyrese Proctor. Those are three very different players who try to finish at the rim in three very different ways. And for him to show the explosion, the timing, the athleticism to be able to block all three of them in the way he did was really impressive. He also took a very confident mid-range jumper. Look, I hate the mid-range jumper. It is a shot that I think should be outlawed from basketball, but he took it with confidence when he was open and finished very nicely. He had a couple nice assists as well, including one to Tyrese Proctor for a three-pointer. You look, as you said, he looked every bit a guy who's going to contribute in a multitude of different ways at both ends of the floor. He looked every bit a experienced, senior, mature leader. And if I just don't, there's just no scenario I can come up with where this guy isn't playing at least 20 minutes a game and being a key player for the Duke Blue Devils. The other guy who I think everyone is saying was the most impressive, not in terms of like literally Cooper Flagg was probably the most impressive player. I mean, he led 15 points. He was all over the place. By the way, really important to note on Cooper Flagg before I get to this other guy. Donald, did you see how often he was guarding the opposing point guard? Like
Yes.
literally, Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster, he was on opposite teams from them at different times. When those guys were bringing the ball up the floor, I saw Cooper Flagg, like this wasn't after a switch or anything like that. This was literally his initial man. The starting point for the Duke defense was Cooper Flagg on the opposing point guard. And I think it's very possible you're going to see that continue into the season because his length, his instincts, he's going to bother that point guard. There's no better way. We talk about it all the time. Cut off the head of the snake. Cut off the head of the snake. There's no better way to disrupt a team than say, hey, everything you practice starts with that point guard. And Cooper Flagg's going to make that point guard's life just a living nightmare out there. I think that's a huge development for Duke.
And do you know why that's possible? Because Sion James can guard big men, because Mason Gillis can guard big men, because Patrick Ngongba had a couple times where he was lined up on Caleb Foster. There's a couple times even where Common Malwatch was able to like do the quick switch and then get back.
The switchability is incredible.
The switchability is incredible, and that allows you to have where you can go, hey, Cooper, stay out on him. Like, I got this guy, you got this guy, and you can have a full possession where you have what would be perceived to be mismatches at two positions, but in actuality, they aren't.
Okay, let's get to the other guy who, like we said, everyone is talking about. That's Con Knuppel, who was draining shots all over the place. Looks like he has a very varied, that's a weird way of saying it, a very varied offensive game. He's not just an outside shooter, although he buried some outside shots. He has such good strength, such a strong frame, especially for a freshman, that he's really able to get those wide shoulders square. He's able to get to the rim and finish in traffic. He looked very, very impressive. It is worth noting that Sam Vecenie of The Athletic, who's one of the best guys at analyzing drafts and doing, mock draft kind of stuff, he has already said, I'll be putting out my 2025 mock draft the day the 2024 draft ends, which is later this week. And he's on it. He goes, Con Knuppel will be in my 2025 first round for my very first mock draft. I don't know that a lot of folks expected that, although about a month ago, I started hearing that people in Con's camp, his family and other people who are close to him were saying, we think he has a chance to be a one and done kind of player. It's clear that Sam Vecenie, who's talking to Duke coaches and talking to other people and looking at videotape and things like that, Sam Vecenie thinks Con Knuppel is a one and done kind of talent. And just, again, the variety of what we saw on film and the strength and the frame says to me that's not a crazy prediction for this kid.
And this is no slight to Con Knuppel or any of the other guys on the team, but I think the increased exposure and awareness that people have of Duke basketball because Cooper Flagg is now here is going to help out some of these guys a lot. You would not have heard of Con Knuppel being labeled as a one and done type of player early on in the summer if there wasn't a lot of extra eyeballs trying to figure out what this Duke team is going to be like because of some of the guys that are on this team. And I think, again, it's not a slight to him. It's actually a very big benefit that we are able to, unfortunately, we cannot keep him from the world. We can't hide him this summer because some of these guys are going to get some extra exposure. And now you'll start to see, we talk about Common Malwatch being a top 3 pick possibly in the NBA draft. Obviously, Cooper Flag is most likely going to be number one unless somebody is stupid. Then you're going to have, Tyrese Proctor could be leaving. Caleb Foster could be leaving. Con Knippel's now getting these looks. So it's going to be a lot of guys. And the question now for these guys is how do they take advantage of that, right? How do they take advantage of the extra exposure that they're going to get, not just by being at Duke, but also being on this Duke team where everyone's saying Cooper Flag is the next coming, is the generational talent that everyone needs to put eyeballs on. How many times have you gone, Jason, to a performance? Doesn't matter what it is, a play or what have you. And they have the main actor, and you're like, oh, the main actor's good, but man, that other one over here,
Right.
that one was awesome. They stole the show. That's what Con Knippel's that's what his mind frame should be is, hey, anytime I'm on the floor, I can steal the show.
Yeah. Hey, let's continue to get to guys that we thought looked really interesting. I was impressed with Patrick Ngongba.
I was too.
Yeah. Looks like he slimmed down a little bit. I mean, he was kind of puffy coming off his foot injury when he was playing, in the like all-star games and stuff like that a month or so ago, month and a half or so. He does look like the Duke weight program has started to get him back in the kind of shape he needs to be in. I thought he made some really nice passes from the high post, the perimeter. This Duke team is very fluid. We talked about the switchability on defense. On offense, you see it as well. I mean, I saw Patrick Ngongba on the perimeter a tremendous amount for a guy that you would think would be chained in the post. Not to say he's going to be out there taking 3-pointers or anything like that, but just as a relief valve, setting screens and then looking for the guy coming off the screen. I thought he looked, smart. He looks like he's very comfortable out there for a big man, and he had a couple nice finishes inside. Look, we know he's going against, future lottery picks in Cooper Flag and Kaman Malawach in there, and as well as guys like Malik Brown. I mean, like elite defenders. And Patrick Ngongba did not look out of place, didn't look like he's going to take a back seat to anybody. I don't know how Duke finds time for all these guys. I'd kind of pegged him as like, I don't know, 10th, 11th guy on the roster, but I thought he looked pretty good in this scrimmage.
I think he's getting into basketball shape again after that, basically being out a year with that foot injury. He, as we mentioned on this broadcast, he went to the U18 USA camp and played on that team. And I feel like while he didn't start or anything like that, he was just getting like his sea legs under him now. And now that he's on campus, he's able to be in basketball shape and get even further into the kind of shape that's required for college basketball. So when you see this video and you say, hey, he had some flashes of brilliance here, it's great to think that it can only get better the more in shape that he gets, because he's going to be playing basketball all day, every day, working out, doing all the things, eating right, and getting on those programs so that when first practice comes around, he could be a totally different ball player than we have seen from him in high school, only because he got to take a year off. I don't say get to take a year off, but he got that year off because of the injury. But now he gets to work his way back to be even stronger than before. And I think that could also come with some of the game that he has. Like if you think about that top of the play key where he gets the ball at the top of the key, either hands it off or even dribbles for a second before trying to pass it in. He did that on a couple occasions. Yeah. That's like the Ryan Young role that we saw early on in 2023-24. So it's clear that they're learning some of the focal points of the offense and where they can be effective on the floor. And this is where the coaching staff's job is going to be, how to figure all this out. Like all these, thut these puzzles pieces together of, hey, when Patrick Ngongba goes out on the top of the key, who do we want inside? Is it a Kaman Malawach? Is it a Cooper Flag? Is it a Malik Brown? Those are all questions that will be fleshed out over the summer, but it's good to see some of these pieces understanding where they need to be on the floor at all times.
It is easy to get excited about the 8, 9, whatever it is, shiny new toys that we have here at Duke. We should not forget that there are a couple old staples who are back in uniform. I thought both Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster looked better than they did last year. Admittedly, again, it's just highlights, but Tyrese Proctor looked like he was looking for his shot a bit more than he has in the past, and he hit all his shots in the video. I don't know, was he 4 for 30 or was he 4 for 7? There's no way to know, but Proctor looked very, 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 very good and distributing the ball. I thought Caleb Foster, especially, Foster was definitely willing to get in that lane, go up against the trees, and finish really nicely. And that's a huge, huge key for him because, as we've seen, as we've talked about, there are guys like Sion James, there are guys like Con Knuppel who are going to be pushing hard for those minutes on the wing. It is going to be a war to see who can get minutes. But I thought Caleb Foster looked the part in this initial scrimmage. And again, it's worth noting he and Proctor trailed only Cooper Flagg in terms of being the scoring leaders.
Jason, I'm glad you mentioned the first part about us not forgetting them. I need everyone to hold us accountable for that, right? Because it's very, very easy to think about all the freshmen that are coming in, all the, the transfers that we have and how good they are and what they can be. And very easy to forget that there's two guys on this team who are going to be the leaders of this team, both on the floor and in as captains, whatever that's going to be. But these two are going to be two of the leaders of this team, and I'm glad to see Caleb Foster's shot looked good. He had a couple of them that were wet from three. Tyrus Proctor again hunting a shot as well, but like you said, I think Caleb Foster showing a variety of ways to score, whether it was from the top of the key, whether it was from the wing, whether it was driving to the lane, or even that little, like that 10 to 12 foot range on the corner. Him and Isaiah Evans had a couple of those where they kind of dribbled down to the corner and then took a shot because it was open, presenting what the defense gave them. So I think those are the things that, again, Caleb Foster can get 10 to 12 points a game in this offense very easily. And then if he's on some of these days, hopefully he's getting closer to 16 to 20.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give you some folks that, I'm not as thrilled with what I saw as I did with the other guys that we've already mentioned. And I'll just run through them very quickly. First of all, Malik Brown, even though we heard about his defense, we didn't see a ton of it in this video. Maybe that's the fault of the guys who are doing the editing and the such, but I did not see very much from Malik Brown on offense either. At one point, one of the coaches was yelling at him to run a little bit harder and was like, dude, I don't need to be saying this to you. You need to be going hard. Ironically, it was on a play where Malik got out front and ended up getting a layup off a pretty nice pass from Tyrese Proctor to feed him for a fast break bucket, but we just did not see much offense at all from Malik Brown. You mentioned Isaiah Evans a second ago. Only 4 points for Isaiah Evans. I didn't notice him all that much. I certainly didn't notice him at all on defense. And one of the buckets that they showed that he hit was a very tough, like you said, on the baseline contest. I think it was contested over Malik Brown.
It's a contested fall away. Yeah.
Yeah. Not an easy shot. Great that he made it. There's no way he's making that shot more than maybe 30% of the time. That is just too difficult a shot. And I'm not a fan of even seeing him attempt a shot like that. It's one thing to take a mid-range jumper, a contested on the move baseline mid-range jumper. Come on, man. That is not a high percentage shot. So I wasn't thrilled to see Isaiah Evans taking that, and he didn't do a lot else. I mentioned Mason Gillis. I saw him talking. I saw Mason Gillis being a leader out there. Saw zero from him in anything else. Maybe they just know he's experienced and they don't need to pump him up in the videos or anything like that. But what we saw on film was very little from Mason Gillis. Kamen Malawach had a few dunks, but I can see why people say he's super, super raw. He looked super, super raw. He had a couple, Sion blocked one of his shots. I noticed one other time Kamen Malawach was going up and Con Knuppel really bothered him to the point where Kamen missed the shot. Not saying he needs to hit every single shot he takes, but he's only shooting from about 3 feet. So he needs to hit a pretty high percentage of them. And hey, Con and Sion are big for guards, but they are guards. And a 7'2" guy like Kamen Malawach should be finishing over those guys more easily than he looked to be finishing. Did you see, Donald, was there other stuff that you saw that bothered you that, has you concerned?
Yeah, well, let me just say on Malik Brown, I believe Abraham Lincoln once said, offense is for clicks, defense wins championships. The reason why he said that,
right,
back in
Abraham
1863, was because, no one cares about watching defensive clips. No one, like, as much as we as basketball junkies would love to see the defense, that's not what gets viral type of numbers on social media. It's the dunks, it's the 3-pointers, it's guys making shots. Chicks dig the long ball, as they say. So you don't want it. Don't read too much into the fact that you didn't see Malik Brown or Mason Gillis or some of these guys doing a lot of defense because they weren't going to show that on the social media video. That's not what this is for. But I do think the fact that, just as you mentioned, that video clip that they did of who had the best defense on the scrimmage, and almost everybody said it was Malik Brown, that just tell you something, that there was probably a lot of this video.
Yes.
If it was all people making shots, it might have been a 12-minute video, but it was only 6. And it's probably because there was some defense. So,
by the way, it's worth noting about Malik Brown, and I forgot to mention this. I had this in my notes and I wanted to bring it up. I did notice that every time he got a rebound, it led to a fast break immediately. Like, he was releasing fast. There was one of them where he gets a rebound and he's got it going up court to Cooper Flagg for a wide open dunk. Like, it was so quick. I was like, wow. And there was another one where he brings the rebound down, and before he's even hit the ground, he has already fed Caleb Foster, who is racing the other direction. Look, I know it's a scrimmage. I know that, it's not as structured as it's going to be later in the season, that there's not as much focus on get back and play defense, but it looked like this Duke team wants to run, and Malik Brown looks like someone who is ready to get you on the fast break the moment he gets the rebound.
Or it just means that it may not necessarily mean that we're going to run every play, right? Like, but it does mean that there's going to be opportunities where we can pick that battle, because if Malik Brown gets the ball and he's outletting, and all of a sudden you turn around on Caleb Foster's already in the front court passing it to somebody else, that's great. And you're not going to get to do that on every single defensive rebound that you get in the game, but there will be opportunities as long as you have the personnel on the floor who know where to be when that happens. So when Malik Brown is getting a rebound by himself, it probably means that these guards who are in the game are going to understand, start flying. Cooper Flagg, start flying, because that means this is a chance to go on a break and get 2 quick points, and maybe an and one if they're slow. Get those points very quickly, and then be able to get back and pressure them again on defense.
All right, Donald, I want to move on. Are we done with the scrimmage video? You ready to?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. We're all good.
All right. So I want to move on now to Duke also released sort of some first looks at some of these guys. It was just some practice video. It was not from the scrimmages, but you think there's something significant here. Go ahead and talk about that if you would.
Yeah, it was, there was 6 or 7 of these that went out. It wasn't everybody on the whole team. And I'm to be fair, I haven't checked social media this morning to know if they've put out the rest of them, but I know it was, several of the new players, both freshmen and transfers. There was one returning player that I saw, that was Tyrese Proctor, had a video. And these videos, Jason, as you mentioned, were like a minute long. Like, it was practice video, them doing a couple of drills, but just to kind of get you to get familiar with some of these players. But Jason, the reason why I bring up these videos is, if you notice in these videos, each of the videos were the same. They started with them shooting free throws. Then they show them kind of attacking the basket.
Yep.
Then there's a couple of them shooting corner threes, and maybe, a couple of the guards, they may be shooting more corner threes than like Kamen Malach, but Kamen Malach even was in the corner shooting corner threes. Then there's them finishing in the paint through contact. And I think there's a reason that those were the highlights that they clipped from each of these players. What did we not do well at the end of last season? Shoot free throws. What were we very streaky at throughout the entire season? Hitting threes. What were we terrible at last year? Finishing at the rim through contact and not getting blocked. This is just as we mentioned that some of these guys that we got, the point of emphasis was defense, blocks, getting out, and really trying to make sure that our defensive quotient was way higher than it was last year. I think some of the points of emphasis on offense are subtly present in these videos. And again, it's not too much to read into what they were doing in the videos, but just the fact that they're highlighting them shooting a free throw. They're highlighting them hitting threes. They're highlighting them going to the rim and finishing through contact. Dunk, Cooper Flagg trying to dunk with either hand. Finish with J-Rob literally like slapping him with one of the bean bags, like with the punching bags, really. Like, just absolutely just trying to murder him while he's finishing through contact. I think those are things that are going to be a point of emphasis. I think everybody should, not necessarily this summer, but as we start with the season, these are all the points that we have of making sure that we're physical, making sure we're not going to be pushed around. Those are some of these little keys here. And I see how this team is trying to, place some importance on some of these different attributes of the entire game. But keep in mind those things: shooting free throws, hitting threes consistently, and really when we go to the rim, do we finish through contact and get the N1? Again, go back to the line, repeat. So I think those are 3 things that I thought were very interesting from these videos. But I'm also glad that they're doing it, because I think it's a good way to introduce everybody to these new players that we have, because there's so many.
All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, Donald's personal connection. to a fast rising recruit. That story when we come back.
The following is a high five moment from highfivecasino.com.
I won! Yahoo! Private, put down your phone. This is the Army.
Sarge, High Five Casino is a social casino. It's on your phone, goes wherever you go. I win free spins, cash, prizes, free daily rewards, over 1,200 games. I won again.
Platoon, present cell phone. High Five. High Five. Casino. Casino. Win at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
High Five Casino.
The following is a high five moment from highfivecasino.com.
Welcome to Burger Yippee. Would you like a hot apple pie today?
Yes, yeah, I won. Woohoo!
So that's a yes on the apple pie?
I just went big time playing High Five Casino on my phone. Real cash prizes, free daily rewards, over 1,200 games. Yeah.
So yes or no on the apple pie?
Whoa! I won again.
I'll take that as a yes. Drive around.
Have you had your high five moment today? Only at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
High Five Casino. High Five Casino.
High Five Casino is a social casino with real prizes and big Vegas hits at highfivecasino.com. The hottest games right from Vegas, and all winnings go straight to your bank account. Hundreds of exclusive games, free daily rewards, and come back to get free coins every 4 hours. Only at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details at high5casino.com.
High Five Casino.
The following is a high five moment from highfivecasino.com.
Welcome to Burger Yippee. Would you like a hot apple pie today?
Yes, yeah, I won. Woohoo!
So that's a yes on the apple pie?
I just went big time playing High Five Casino on my phone. Real cash prizes, free daily rewards, over 1,200 games. Yeah.
So yes or no on the apple pie?
Whoa! I won again.
I'll take that as a yes. Drive around.
Have you had your high five moment today? Only at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
High Five Casino.
We're back from the break, Donald. And before we get to some recruiting news that I know you really want to talk about, I just want to mention that Duke has put out the official roster for the team that includes the heights and weights of everybody on the team. As we've talked about endlessly, other than Spencer Hubbard, other than walk-on Spencer Hubbard, there is no one on this team shorter than Caleb Foster, who is 6'5". Everyone else is 6'6" and up. It is a ridiculously big team. And I was kind of intrigued at some of the weights of some of these guys. I mean, for example, you got a Sion James who's 6'6", 220. Compare that to Isaiah Evans, who's 6'6", 175. Literally, Sion James is 50 pounds heavier than Isaiah Evans. It is crazy. Tyrese Proctor is 6'6", 183, so he's just barely bigger than Isaiah Evans. Compare that to another guy who is 6'6", Con Knuppel, 6'6", almost 220, 217. You see sort of how some of these guys carry their weight. Mason Gillis, 6'6", 225. We got some guys who just, they got the shoulders, they got the weight. It's really exciting to see. And you just can't help but look up and down this roster and marvel at the size of it.
Look, it's funny. First of all, half of the guys on this team are listed at 6'6". 6 guys. So that's a lot of guys at 6'6". You have, as you mentioned, Caleb Foster at 6'5". My best friend was like, could we not find another like inch for him somewhere? Like,
right. Yeah.
Can they wear some insoles or something to put him up to 6'6" so we could just mark him as that?
I think he's just self-reported. Caleb should just set up 6'6".
Yeah, well, I'm when someone says they're 5'11", they're really 5'9". This was what some people would say. I am 5'9". I'm not 5'11". But but in basketball shoes, I'm 5'12" is what I would probably list. Common Malwatch, you mentioned like weight and how it presents on a player. Common Malwatch looks like he's 112 pounds. He is listed as 7'2", 250, and also a growing 7'2", 250. So this is going to be funny to see if he really is 7'2" by the end of the season, because I don't think he will be. I think he'll be a little bit taller than that. He might be getting closer to 7'4" by the time this season is done with. But yeah, it's interesting. You can see some of the graduateness of some of these heights and weights, right? Like you mentioned, Sion James, 6'6", 220. Mason Gillis, 6'6", 220. Converse that with Isaiah Evans, 6'6", 175. Darren Harris, who unfortunately fractured his hand, so he's going to be out for a while. He's actually listed as 6'6", 203. So I think that's an interesting thing as well. But make no mistake, Spencer Hubbard is going to teach these guys the way of the cookout diet. It may not be for him since he is at 157, but some of these other guys might be getting on the cookout diet pretty soon. And while others, it just feels like, holding their weight in a way that allows them to be physical and be able to withstand the rigors of college basketball is the real key here. It does not matter if someone is 220, if they're 220 and they get pushed around in the paint, right? It's about how that 220 is used. And that's what Coach Will in the weight room staff is going to be paying attention to this summer.
Last thing I wanted to note from the official roster that was put out by Duke University, there's a new column. Did you notice this, Donald? You got the number, you got the name, the position, height, weight, hometown, high school. They've added another column. The other column is previous college.
They had that last year.
Did they have it last year? I didn't notice it last year.
Yes, they did have it. They've actually had it for a few years because we've had, a steady stream of recruits or at least of transfers coming in from different schools. Because I know they had Northwestern listed for Ryan Young, and obviously Neil Begovic was on here as well as a transfer.
Stanford. Well, there are 5 guys that have previous college. There was a time when Duke would never have even thought of including that as something on the roster. I just thought that was worth noting. All right, you teased this last episode, I think.
It was a couple back. Yep.
There's a couple back. So Donald wants to talk about a Caden Lewis, a top 30-ish recruit. He's a combo guard out of the Washington, D.C. area. He is, by the way, I believe it has been noted, he is one of only two players in the class of 2025 to have gotten offers from all 5 of what are considered the blue bloods. By the way, I sort of wondered who the 5th of the blue, I'm clear.
On three is listing UConn, not UCLA. I don't agree with that, but they're listing UConn.
In my mind, there are 4 blue bloods: Duke, Kansas, UNC, Kentucky. Those are the 4 blue bloods.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else is a pretender. So you want to say it's UConn now? It used to be UCLA, used to be Villanova. Probably we'll have to put Arkansas in there now that John Calipari's got to Arkansas. It's just worth noting that this kid has been offered a scholarship by every single one of the major players out there. That shows you what an impressive player he is. Now that I've talked about him, I don't know diddly compared to you. Tell us about your relationship with the Caden Lewis.
Yeah, so Caden Lewis, first of all, is 6'2" guard, as you mentioned, plays at Sidwell Friends, so one of the best basketball programs in the country. He was the DC Gatorade Player of the Year this year. So Gatorade, has all these different players, the National Player of the Year. I'm pretty sure that was Cooper Flagg this year, but they also have him in different states and, of course, the District of Columbia. He is the best player in the District of Columbia. But let me tell you about Caden Lewis. The way I know him is I've known him since he was about 3 or 4 years old because I went to school with his dad. I went to high school with his dad. He and I are very, very good friends. We talk, hang out all the time, and I've seen Caden grow into this basketball player since then. But let me just tell you a little bit about his game and just how he got to this point. I think the thing to understand, Jason, is he was cut from each of his middle school teams. He went to St. John's College High School for his freshman year, but he rode the bench. He then switched to Sidwell before his sophomore year. The coach there really saw something in him and said, hey, I can bring this out of you and give you an opportunity to compete. And he has done pretty well for them. But as he, kind of went into his sophomore, junior year, he wasn't on any top 100 list. And as recently as May, he was listed in the 80s on most of the composite high school rankings. So a lot of people it was just not on the radar. But he had an incredible year.
By the way, being one of the 80 best players, that's unbelievable.
It's still unbelievable, but he got that late in his junior year. This past year freshman, sophomore year, he wasn't even ranked in the top 100 at all. But he had an incredible year for Sidwell. He has been mashing people on the AAU circuit so far, and has rocketed up to 34th in the 247 rankings, and that is why he is starting to get all this love. He has received, scholarships from, it feels like 25 different schools at this point. You mentioned the Blue Bloods as a part of that. And like you mentioned, one of only 2 players that have been offered by all of them. The other player is the number 1 guy in the class, AJ
Dybantsa. Yeah.
So he's working with rare air here. I will say this. I just told you his story about him being cut from middle school to being one of the hottest commodities in high school basketball right now. I have never seen anyone work harder than this kid to get better. We were all rightfully enamored with the work ethic of Jared McCain this past season. That is a Caden Lewis. He lives in the gym. He gets better every day. He will play basketball 3-4 times a day if you let him. You kind of have to sometimes, I think his dad has to sometimes tell him to chill and like, hey, rest your body sometimes. But he is an absolute animal when it comes to working out, being in the gym, getting better, and applying what he's learned on the floor. Now, there's a lot of people who think that they saw that Caden Lewis had been offered by UNC. They also saw that he has scheduled an unofficial visit to UNC and also an official visit to UNC. Don't read too much into that. He's scheduling officials with a lot of schools. The reason why is he was waiting for schools to offer him officially before they set up an official visit. There is an official visit coming. As part of a big weekend, hopefully for Duke basketball. So stay tuned for that. He does have an unofficial already set up for like 6 weeks from now, from what I've heard. But I think a lot of people just need to watch for this kid because he is still continuing to go up in the rankings. 34 may not be the ceiling for him. It may just be the floor from what we've seen so far. And I'm just, on a personal level, truly, truly proud of this kid for watching him grow into this particular player. It's one of the things that we kind of, in my mind, kind of dreamed about, and I'd laugh about it with his dad. Like, hey, man, would it be great to for Duke to recruit him, and then I'd have to report myself to Duke Compliance as having a pre-existing relationship. Well, I had to do that. I had to email Duke Compliance over the weekend and say, hey, I know this kid. So when you see me and his dad talking, like, that's why. So, but it's really, really cool. Stay tuned to him. And I'm really hoping that he ends at Duke on a personal level, but also he fits a need for Duke next year, as we may need another combo or point guard to get us through that next season.
All right. Well, that's a ton of fun. I mean, we sometimes joke and laugh about having sources and the such. And, I've developed a relationship with some of the players and some of the parents of players on the team. Ain't nothing like what you got with this kid. So that's pretty special. That's pretty awesome. That is going to wrap it up for us here on the latest edition of the DBR podcast, the Duke Basketball Roundup. I am Jason. He is Donald. Check your feed. We will be back in your feed in a matter of hours with part 2 of Jay Billis's preview of the NBA draft. And as part of that conversation, we'll be discussing other things going on with college basketball, including the fact that they are talking about expanding the NCAA tournament again. We will have news on that and our conversation with Jay coming up very soon. But for now, he is Donald. I am Jason, and this is the Duke Band. Play us out and take us home.